Hi, I'm Nicole Stewart, and I'm an actress, filmmaker, and arts and activism apprentice alum of the Beautiful Project. I served as a cinematographer of the film Our Need to Dream, created by my cohort of apprentices. The Beautiful Project is an arts based organization that uses storytelling and visual arts to advance the healing and representational justice of Black girls, gender expansive youth, and women. We collectively create photographic, film, visual, and narrative projects in response to our needs for recognition, our desire to heal, and our protection of dreams for ourselves and our people. It is my honor to introduce a phenomenal and innovative giant in the film and TV industry, Gina Prince-Bythewood. Award-winning director, writer, producer, Gina Prince-Bythewood is one of the most versatile story directors working in film and television. Known for her authentic, character-driven work, Prince-Bythewood has written and directed such influential feature films as Love and Basketball, The Secret Life of Bees, and Beyond the Lights. She most recently directed the critically acclaimed epic feature film The Woman King for Sony's TriStar Pictures, which opened in theaters in September 2022 at the top of the domestic box office. The film is a remarkable story of the Ogoje, the all-female unit of warriors protected the African kingdom of Dahomey in the 1800s, with skills and a fierceness unlike anything the world has ever seen. Inspired by true events, The Woman King follows the emotionally epic journey of General Naniska, played by Oscar winner Viola Davis, as she trains the next generation of recruits and readies them for battle against an enemy determined to destroy their way of life. The film stars Viola Davis, Tuso Medu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, Hero Finds Tiffin, and John Boyega. Produced by Kathy Schulman, Jules Tennant, and Maria Bello. Prior to The Woman King, Prince-Bythewood directed the critically acclaimed action drama blockbuster The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron, and Kiki Lane. For television, Prince-Bythewood most recently directed the pilot and served as an executive producer of ABC's limited series Women of the Movement. The 6-episode series aired in 3 parts, debuting in January 2022 and based on the true story of Mamie Till Mobley, who devoted her life to seeking justice for her son Emmett Till following his brutal murder in the Jim Crow South in 1955. Her TV credits include the special event series Shots Fired, directing the pilot for Marvel's Cloak and Dagger. Her next television project will be Genius, MLKX, which she and her husband, Reggie Rock Bythewood, will serve as executive producers under their production company, Undisputed Cinema. Genius, MLKX, will explore the formative years, pioneering accomplishments, dueling philosophies, and key personal relationships of Martin Luther King Jr., played by Kevin Harrison Jr., and Malcolm X, played by Aaron Pierre. As a longtime advocate for equal representation in film and television on screen and behind the scenes, Gina Prince-Bythewood has championed many emerging writers and directors, as well as funding a scholarship for African American students in the film program at UCLA, her alma mater. She will be awarded with the ACE Golden Eddie Filmmaker Award for the year in March 2023, recognizing an artist who exemplifies distinguished achievement in the art and business of film. Ms. Prince-Bythewood will be in conversation with 2 brilliant rising filmmakers and artists, Hanaan Lewis and Freelon. You'll learn more about their artistic visions during this conversation, moderated by Cidra Sebastien, the fund manager of the Black Girl Freedom Fund. Stay tuned and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Black Week for Freedom Fund at Grant Makers for Girls of so that I do not just fall off. I'm so overjoyed to be in conversation with Gina Prince-Bythewood, Hanaan Lewis, and Freelon as we have this conversation about the film industry, arts, and innovation. And so to get us started, the theme for this year's Black Girl Freedom Week is the artistic vision, activism, and innovation of Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth. And when I think about the top innovators in the film industry, Gina Prince-Bythewood is at the top of my list. And so, Gina, I would love to hear from you to talk about one of the reasons that you're at the top of my list is just the rich female Black women, Black girl characters that are in your films. And if you can talk with us about what you consider when you're thinking about those characters.
Well, foremost, thank you for having me. And I hope that everybody involved gets involved with this week, but obviously continue your support throughout the year. I think the most important thing for me as a filmmaker is the reminder that I'm the first audience. And for all filmmakers, you should write what you want to see. And I want to see us. I know certainly when I first started, how rare it was to be able to see myself reflected on screen. And if I was reflected in a way that made sense to me, that I recognized, which didn't often happen, I would say too infrequently the same thing is happening, certainly in the industry. So it's so important that more of us are in that, our writers are sitting in the director's chair to control our narrative and our images. So, for me, I love character. I love creating character. And I think most of my projects that I do start with a character. They start with an image, something that's interesting to me. Because if you think about stories, if you're doing a love story, there's only two ways it's going to end. They're going to end up together or they're not. But what is the journey? And it's the characters in that journey that make it different. I think for us, certainly for Black characters, it's so important that we give a fullness of humanity. That's, I think, the thing that is missing so often in our portrayals when it's not us telling the story, when it's not us with the pen creating. So it's that specificity. It's the deep dive into who your character is. My character work is pages because I want to make them real. Because if they're real, then they literally talk to me as I'm writing, and it's an amazing thing. So making them real is just a deep dive into who they are. What do they look like? What are their hobbies? What are their dreams? What was their school like? What is their home life like? What is their mantra? What is their religion? What is their favorite food? Like, you should know your character better than anybody. And it's that specificity that makes them real. And I think that's what audiences connect to if they feel that truth within characters. And again, at the end of the day, that truth is a thing that I think that's what we bring to our characters when we're telling our own stories.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I want to bring Hanaan and X into the conversation. A few days ago, when X and I were talking about the work that they do, one of the things that came up was, how connected political visions are to artistic visions. And X wanted you to talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying X was going to talk.
Yeah, I wanted X to talk more about that.
My apologies. I misheard. Excuse me. Well, when Cidra and I were talking about it, I think a lot of what I was bringing up was, there's this concept that artistic envisioning is something kind of display. And I was sharing with Cidra that for the last 3 years, I've been working with a community-oriented housing collective project where we kind of find ways to creatively distribute power amongst landowners and non-landowners so that we can create collaborative housing structures to kind of meet the gaps and needs. And where my work in that does also kind of create a lot of preoccupation away from being able to always primarily do video making or filmmaking, though I still do, just maybe not to the capacity or the amount that I really enjoy. And I was sharing that in experiences when I have shopped around some of my scripts or I've shared some of my work with production houses, I've kind of come up against a pressure to display my artistic vision in a way that looks like an amassment of work, but doesn't see work in a kind of multilateral mode, right? So I have collections of work that maybe are narrative and linear, but there are also collections that are really rooted in personal experiences or oral histories. And I have often kind of struggled to maybe see the connection in a more broad canon of film where in what you've also brought up, where there's more than just representation, there's a diversification in history and what kind of histories are shown and the ways in which histories are allowed to be shown. And where I have found that the limit in being able to see both political visions and artistic visions in continuity with one another versus in mutual exclusivity tends to limit where I can feel present sometimes in the field of film. And so I know I was interested in just, I guess, hearing both your experience and or yeah, just your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who we are and what we want to say to the world. I mean, for me, that's the beauty of being a filmmaker. The platform is so big. What we do is so big and it has the ability to change perception, change minds, change culture. And so understanding that power should feed into what you want to put into the world. What are you going to put your energies to? What is your work going to say? My husband and I, from the very beginning, when we met, we had this shared belief in the power of film and a shared belief in what we're going to put into the world and have our voice hopefully help change the world. Like, that's the power of what we do. We can literally change the world, change someone's world. So I've just never set out to just entertain.
Mm-hmm.
And no disrespect to anyone who just wants to do that, but I feel you can entertain and also say something to the world. And when you have this opportunity, when you have this platform. So, I mean, I think, you know, in talking specifically the Woman King, there's a version of the Woman King, which is literally just badass women killing people. That could be it. But that's not what I wanted to put in the world. These were real women, real warriors. We have never seen ourselves depicted like this before. And it was so important that we showed the humanity of these women, show the full breadth of these women. And as a filmmaker, to be able to speak on, put words, literal words into a king's mouth that says that we have to come together as a people. Because when we do that, we are limitless. We have that power. There's such power in our culture and our minds. Like, that's me speaking to the audience. When I have Breonna Taylor's name at the end of the film, that is me speaking to the audience, connecting us from the past to the present and honoring those we have lost. So it's so important for you to put yourself into your work. And, you know, in looking at what both of you guys are focusing on, it's so important because both of you have stories only you can tell because you are living your existence. You know what you want to say. It's not always easy. Certainly, it's easier to put into the world something, just a fun rom-com. However, if that is not who you are, then you have to be willing to fight. Woman King took 7 years to get to the screen because of the type of film it was. Again, if we made it just strictly a popcorn movie, it probably would have gotten made a lot sooner, but it was important to Viola. And then when I came aboard, important to me. It's got to say something, and we have to show these women in a real way. So you got to stay with it. I'm not gonna lie, it is absolutely harder the way that you are going, Hanaan, the way you're going, and the way that I've gone. Every one of my films has taken at least 2 years is the least amount of time in terms of getting somebody to even, you know, say we may want to do it. So it's a tougher road, but I think it's so much more rewarding and gratifying to put work out in the world that you know is going to touch somebody.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And can we just pause for the Woman King right now? Like, oh my goodness. You deserve all the flowers, all the awards, the whole team, everyone. Just such an impactful film that is going to be something that people reference for years and decades and generations to come. Listening to you talk about, like, you have the stories to share. Hanaan, I was thinking about you when we were talking, you know, even the way that you described yourself, I was like, wow, I've not heard somebody describe themselves as third cultured before. And learning that and learning about your work has just opened up so much for me. And so would love to hear you talk about, like, how you identify, how that comes into the work and the stories that you're telling through film.
Thank you for that. I grew up in Kuwait. Parents are both New Yorkers. And I do identify as a Black American Muslim woman. But the different kind of, like, I don't know, like racism that I've experienced wasn't like the traditional like Black American racism. So I recognize that through that experience, I recognize that there are different like lived experiences when it comes to being like an African American human being. But yeah, I grew up in Kuwait, and every summer we would visit my family in New York. And one summer when I was 5, I was handed a Kodak disposable camera. And it was the first time I was called upon to think about aesthetics and be in control of my own aesthetics. And for me, those were like the sidewalks of New York. And there's no sidewalks in Kuwait. So that led to a lifelong obsession with capturing images. And soon after, I was writing, directing, and performing skits with family and friends. In high school, I was invited to join a playwriting ensemble. And the director of the program told me during the writing process that I have a very cinematic way of writing and I don't write for the stage. So I was like, you know what? Let me explore this a little more. And that's when I majored in directing, and I've loved it ever since. And through that experience, I've discovered that there's not a lot of diverse representation of Muslims in media. It's always, the hijab is always depicted as a tool to save someone's life, whether it's to take it off and like stop someone from bleeding, or like someone is hating their religion or hating themselves because of their religion, or there's like the white savior and like, let me save you from your religion. And all of these things kind of made me feel like, I think part of my fight is to depict ordinary Muslim characters living their own experiences, just being like what it means to be human, essentially. And not depicting them as these beings who hate themselves or that they're oppressed. That's like the typical narrative that's associated with that. And so that's like my silent fight, where it's not essentially like on the nose, rather, or might not, it like race is like apparent in the film, or that they're Muslim and that's apparent, but it's not like an on-screen fight, but more like nuanced. And so that's what I'm fighting for right now, just more nuanced storytelling as it pertains to Muslims and Black American Muslims.
Yeah,
That's the reality is 99% of the people writing the things that you're seeing are writing because they've seen that depicted somewhere. And so they're writing based on stereotypes that they've seen, as opposed to your voice. And you said it's your silent fight, but I'm going to say, get loud. And, because you have the ability to tell the truth. You have the ability to see the things that you want to see, literally by writing it, literally by picking up that camera and shooting it. You can show us what you want us to know about you. Again, that's the power of what we get to do. So be loud and show us all of that and change the narrative, because you're right, there is a sameness of the images that we see. And so the more that the world sees it, the more the world assumes that's what it is. It's the same thing. The world assumes so much about us as a people, as a community, because all they're seeing are stereotypes written over and over and over and perpetuated. And it takes us that can come and bring our truth to it to show a different way. And it's going to take time. It's going to take decades to undo the damage, but it starts with us. It starts with filmmakers like you guys.
Right, for
so
sure.
we're taking it from Gina. Get loud with it.
Will do.
So one of the things that folks might not realize, Gina, is that in addition to being an amazing filmmaker, director, producer, and writer, you also do a lot of investment in emerging writers, and wanting you to talk about what that investment looks like.
Yeah, it's just so vital, and it's something so important to my husband and I. because there's nothing good about being the only one in the room. Nothing at all. There's no pride in it. You are not special. And so when you get through that door, you absolutely got to hold that door open and pull others in. So that's always been our thing. And it's exciting for us if we go to a film festival and see a short film and you see talent, or even somebody's first film. I remember, seeing Awkward Black Girl back in the day when it was, on YouTube, and I reached out to Issa because I was so impressed with her brain and that you did this. And then to find out that she had written me a letter years ago when she was 13, I think, and had seen Love and Basketball. So it's exciting to see new voices and see people with talent. And so what it looks like is we created a production company, Undisputed Cinema. And so we have a deal with the studio. And so our thing is not only doing our own work, but giving other writers, directors, producers an opportunity to get that show, to be supportive, to help them fight for their vision if we feel they're at a level where they can run their own show, but protecting their vision, knowing that we have the muscle, so to speak, to help them preserve their vision. Because that's, I think, the biggest thing that I've seen happen to folk in this industry is you come in strong with a vision of who you are, the type of projects you want to do, and that gets dented every day with what happens once you get into a studio system. They want a sameness as much as they talk about they want original stories. So people don't understand that you have to fight, that it's not enough. Don't just be grateful that you get an opportunity, because those opportunities will be gone if at the end result of what you've come in with doesn't represent you, isn't what you wanted to say. So I knew early on that I had to fight. And so for me, it's reminding people, you've got to fight for your vision. It's the most important thing that you have.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question that I got from a young person, and then I'm going to leave it open to X and Hanaan to ask you a question directly as well. And so the question is, what inspires you to keep moving, even when people try to stop you from doing what you're doing and it's good? What do you do, and how do you get through even when you're not appreciated?
That's a good question. Well, foremost, we make films, we make product, we make TV for an audience. However, as I've said before, it has to start with you, and it has to start with, what do you want to put in the world? What do you want to see? So foremost, I've never done a project that I haven't been passionate about. And that passion is what fuels the fight, because every project is a fight to get the money, a fight to get made, a fight to protect your vision. So I have to be passionate about it. And if I'm passionate about it, that also protects me in a way from those who may come after it. And, it's certainly a tough thing knowing that as Black filmmakers, our projects are the hardest to get made. It takes the most fight. We, of course, as an audience, as a people, we're not a monolith, but there are certain things you hope that we will embrace, knowing how hard it is, because the more films we get, the more diversifying of the images that we get to have, then it's better for us. But there's so few things getting made that there's such a hot spotlight on everything, and oftentimes we want our projects to be all in everything, and you can't do that. You have to stay true to the kind of stories or characters you want to tell. So I think, as I said, it's a protection if you're doing what you're passionate about, if you believe in it wholeheartedly. Of course, it does hurt. It does hurt if somebody comes after you, and especially if they're coming after you and not actually understanding or parroting negativity that they heard. I mean, a perfect example, with the Woman King, there's this rumor that Lupita dropped out of it because of what the film was and the way that it was depicting these women, and it's just not true. And so, but I can't go on Twitter. You can't win arguments on Twitter. But it was
Right.
literally, literally a article where she said that the part wasn't for me. And then people put all this stuff on it. But what she said is true. When the part was written, the character was 19 years old. Lupita's not 19. She realized she was too old for the part. Like, that's the story. But it has become this thing that's not true. So, that kind of thing is tough, because you want to be able to talk and answer, but you also hope that people see your body of work and understand, obviously, I'm not going to put something out in the world that's going to hurt us, that's going to damage us, that's going to be negative towards us. But again, because I'm so passionate about what I do and the stories that I tell, that's what I get to live in, and surround myself with people who are supportive and are your hype folk, who can get you through those times.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Hanaan X, I'll let one of y'all jump in here.
Do you want to go? Do you want to go first?
I was yielding to you, but
okay, all right. I was wondering what advice, would you give to young Muslim directors who want to gain access to producers of mainstream media for the purpose of having more influence on Muslim portrayals in movies and television?
Foremost, I would look at work that you admire and respect, that you feel are putting images out that are not damaging, that have truth to them, and see who those producers are, because not everybody is for us or about us, and you can tell by their body of work. Look at their body of work and see what they are putting into the world, and then I would reach out to them. And it is absolutely true. Like, producers, on the producer side, producers are always looking for fresh voices, fresh stories, ways to come at stories in a different way. Again, I mentioned love story can go only two ways, but what are you going to bring to it? Well, your lived experience, the characters that you could create, the stories that whether it be things that you went through personally, things that your friends went through personally, your family. I mean, your story itself, when you talk about it, like, that's a movie. So, it is sharing your specific experience with producers who absolutely are looking for fresh things. It's when you get to the studio level that's when people start to dent it. But when you have somebody that supports you and believes in your vision as well, and that's the thing, you want to know the people you're getting in bed with are there to fight for you and with you as well. So again, I think the biggest thing is looking at the track record, and then also having material that is undeniable. It's not enough for you to pitch a story, because there's 100 different pitches. And in terms of pitches, most people, they want, kind of the big, giant tentpole movies or pitches. But if you take the time to write a spec, like Love and Basketball was a spec. I wrote it without having any studio, any producer. I just wrote the script and then went out to sell it. When you do that, that is your calling card. That is the work. That is telling the producers, the studio, the audience, the world, this is my words, this is my voice, this is what I want to say. I find that is the best way. Having a great script will get you in everywhere. Because there's so much crap out there. And so when a fresh voice comes, when good writing comes, when a different story comes, people get excited about that. And there's more avenues now as well in terms of getting it into people's hands. The Sundance programs, Blacklist, which was created by Franklin Leonard, who realized, how can we get people access to producers? It's such a great program. And I think it's like $10 to be able to put your script on the Blacklist, and then producers read it. So that's a lot, but
thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, actually, you kind of started answering the question that I did have, which I was going to ask. I guess in the space of like the writing room, like, what is it that you look for in a script? Because you did already mention like looking for great scripts, but what makes a great script? And especially people. So.
What makes a great script? Does it move me? I think that's the most important thing for me, and the most important thing for my work, that I look, am I moved? Can I move you? And if you've moved me, it means that you've created a world in terms of the world building, or created characters that I am connected to, that I feel for. So a great script is certainly the story, the journey. And is it something that I've never seen before? And the characters, do I care about them? Do they feel real? Those are really the two big elements. You can say, you know, obviously you want really great dialogue, you want great structure, but those are the technical things. The special thing that a writer brings is the specificity of character and a story, a journey that we just haven't seen before.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. As I'm listening to y'all talk, I'm wondering about you know, your wellness and how you take care of yourself, right? Like balancing all the things that the three of you do as creators. And I think especially for X and Hanaan, who you have jobs and you're a creator. And so that's a different level of like energy that you are sharing and giving and not necessarily getting back. And so to your comfort, would love to hear you all share about like, what do you do to take care of yourself? What do you do to make sure that you have the heart, the mind, and the spirit energy to do what moves you?
For me, I try to be mindful of my blessings just in general, because I think if I get too caught up in like the what's next, I can forget just how far I've come to get here. And so just taking the time to be like, I have eyes to look at paper to write a script. I have hands to write, use a pen. Like I just like to break it up and just be mindful of like the blessings that we can see and what we can't see. I make sure that to have hobbies that don't pertain to work, and don't like just something that you don't have to like market off of, just something that's for you to enjoy. Therapy is also very good. Talking to someone, talking it out,
Yeah.
and just staying in touch with like what you're feeling. For me also, it's very important to just have like consistency and like my obligations as a Muslim woman. That helps me a lot too, to have a good balance of like what's obligatory of me and like what's more like passions and things that are not like religious based, you know.
Well, I'll lead with saying that I have like really prevalent ADHD. So I need a lot of stimulation in order to really help my brain not go to a space that works like against me. And so I have mastered the art of skillfully taking breaks. And so I take breaks from either my primary work and or my secondary work, and or I integrate taking breaks in a way that kind of like feeds into a different skill or a different part of myself that I feel like I've been neglecting exploring. So recently, like I was working on a script and I kind of got to a dead stall after writing like the first episode of something, and I was getting really hard on myself with like feeling like, oh, you need to take this somewhere, you need to like be productive in a hard material sense of that. And I was like, you know what, maybe my creative energy is just kind of spent in this direction of like really hard envisioning. And so I randomly signed up to be a part of a play and doing things like that, alternating where I am like taking part in my just creative selfhood reminds me that I don't belong to any one thing, which tends to be a really comforting and grounding reminder for myself. And of course, I also go to therapy. I attend both like kind of narrative therapy and talk form, but also a lot of somatic forms of therapy. I have to do a lot of things to be rerouted in my body and to remind myself that like if I'm imagining visions, I also like really need to be able to feel them also. And I too like put a lot of importance on being able to be moved by my own work. But I feel like it's easy to kind of get so focused on generating movement that I forget to focus in on like stillness, right? And being able to like honor that and give my body the space to like regenerate and just be present so that whenever I am in the process of working on a project or doing something different, I feel like I'm actually 100% there. And so that's been my like self-care method the last year and a half, and it's been really effective. Before then, I was a lot of it involved a lot of making space for family and friends, which is still present, but maybe not so much as making space primarily for myself.
Oh, you guys are so much healthier than me. I'm seriously taking in what you guys are saying. I have honestly in the last couple months actually started to speak on the toll that being in a sustained fight for the last 25 years has taken, because for me, it's just an athlete mentality, you know, which was my mentality for 18 years till I started getting into film. And it really is what's next. You achieve a goal and then you create another goal and you go after that. It's relentless, you know? And it's absolutely helped me in terms of, you know, what I've done and my stamina, because you need stamina in this industry, absolutely. But yeah, the realization of the toll that is taken. For me, my happy place is absolutely, my son plays baseball, my younger son, so sitting in his games where it's just calm unless he's up at bat, and then I get, you know, stressed out. Or my son who's at NYU and doing music, like listening to his music, seeing him create, seeing the excitement that he has. So I'm learning to give into that, to give myself some grace to take a break. It's just, I get bored easily. And so after 2 weeks, I'm like, what's next? But I really do feel like I do need to take that mental health break and just get clarity and calmness and be still for a moment to really decide what am I going to give my energies to next.
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing. And you said what's next. And so I'm going to ask you, Gina, what's next? as much as we can all talk about the breadth of work and specifically, well, most recently, The Woman King, I think so many people are excited for what's next. And I totally get when artists are like, no, what's next is later. Right now, I'm relishing in what is and enjoying that. And so I want to honor, if you're in the what is space, to dismiss that question and we can move on to something else.
Yeah, I won't dismiss the question, but it is true. I'm really excited about taking a break to get clarity. Doing The Woman King was such a profound experience. Profound to be able to tell the story, being in the motherland, being with this group of women who are so ancestral and spiritual, and the fight and the protection of this story and the protection of us and our history and telling it from our point of view. So it's a strange thing to like, what is going to give me that same feeling? But I have to recognize it doesn't. Every film I've done has been a different experience, and there's been different gifts to every single one. So I need that break and be on the beach for a little bit, just to be able to shed and reflect what this has all meant and enjoy it, because again, I don't want to think about what's next, even though I'm excited about what's next, but I don't want to do it at the expense of missing the blessings that this has certainly been given.
Thank you. Thank you. Hanaan X, do y'all want to talk about what's next, or do you want to be in the what is moment?
I don't mind talking about what's next. Like I had mentioned a little earlier, I've been really excited because I'm directing a community theater production of The Color Purple and the musical. And so I am really excited. It's a nice break away from like videography, but also my day job, which is running a nonprofit. And so it's a nice breakaway. And it's just been a really nice reminder in how to like really connect with people. Theater is such a medium that is like clearly so people oriented, which film mirrors, but there's a level of engagement from people's like more intimate self that I've noticed that I've like also kind of missed. And so I am really looking forward to that. And we have auditions this Sunday. And so from there we get the ball rolling and we're 10 weeks from open. So the next 2 months of my life will be a little fast paced in the traditional theater kind of way. But I think it's also going to kind of re-energize me with some of my other long form projects that I'm also looking forward to this year. So
that's what's up.
I actually spent 2 years on a hiatus from film after my thesis film, which actually won Best Short at the Black Muslim Fly Festival in 2020. And I took a long break. I was like, you know what? Stillness, like what we've been talking about. But now I'm so excited because I just locked the script to my new short film. It's a genre that I never tapped into before, but have been wanting to. It's a surrealist comedy piece. And it does center on 2 different Black Muslims from 2 different generations. So I'm excited to make the film. Currently in the getting funding stage. So
yeah, that's dope.
That's what's up. Yeah. Oh wow, thanks so much for sharing. And now I'm like, I will be marking my calendar after this so I can make note of all the things that are coming up so we can continue to support you all. Yeah, before we close out the conversation, if there is something that is sitting on your heart right now that you want to share to specifically a Black girl, femme, or gender expansive youth that is tuning in, who may be interested in film and TV, or, you know, is kind of calling themselves an artist, but they whisper it, they don't loudly claim that they're an artist. What's something that you would say to that young person, to those young people who are tuning in right now?
I mean, certainly, I mean, I'm going to steal from you, claim it and say it. I think from an early age, once I understood, I used to write short films all the time when I was like 6 and 7, 8, but I didn't know what that was. Once I realized that that's a writer, I used to call myself a writer. And then once I understood what directing was, I just started calling myself a director. And it's a beautiful thing to claim it. But I think what's so important for us and why I'm so enamored with what you're doing with Black Girl Freedom is to encourage not only creatives to create content that we can look up and see ourselves in and be inspired or aspire to be, but then for us to seek out those type of narratives and images to fill us, because you know we could have our cup full at home or from a teacher, or you know even from ourselves, and you go out into the world and people like to take from that cup. You know, and so much of us, it happens to us so much every single day. And so I just, you know, I'm here because I so believe in what you're doing, and I so understand the necessity of it, that we need to see ourselves reflected in beautiful, complex ways. And when I say that, it doesn't mean we are not perfect. No one's perfect. And I find perfection to be, you know, dangerous, as opposed to complexity, that we can be so many things, and just allowing people to see our humanity. Because I think that's one of the greatest things that's missing. People do not see our humanity as a whole in the world. So please use if you're a creator, use your platform to put that out there and show so many different sides of us. And then also, if you're not, but you need those images and things, just seek them out, use them, whether it's a song. You know, how many people listen to Break My Soul every morning just to get yourself pumped up, you know, like those kind of things, they work. Or things that I may watch just to get myself hyped for something. Use art to help sustain you, push you, see yourself, and just get some swagger, because that's what we need, swagger.
Thank you so much. Hanaan X.
I'd say really look into yourself and see what you like, what you don't like, what your core values are, because just because you like something that might be different from another peer doesn't mean that what you like is wrong, or like your style is wrong. That's just your boundary, and that's just like part of what makes you you. So don't feel like you have to take from others because their style is already defined, and instead trust that what comes from you is also important and is also valuable.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I actually feel like this has been touched upon by both folks before me, but I was actually thinking, like, you know, expertise starts with imagination. I think that that's really true for film. I don't think that or art in general. I'll expand that to just all art in general. But for someone who's like young and maybe scared to attach themselves to the real identity, whatever that may be, of like being an artist, is that expertise is imagination. And if you have the imagination, you already have the expertise. And it's a matter of figuring out how to bridge those spaces. And that also, nobody has the authority to speak to you as an authority over your imagination. That's not saying that there aren't limits that I'm not willing to venture into, but if there are limits that somebody else and that you feel called to explore, that is with the purpose and the intent, and trust that more than you trust what other people are telling you. So.
Word. Thank you so much. Thank you, X. Thank you, Hanaan. Thank you, Gina. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this conversation. I hope that you continue to tune in to all that we have for you during this year's Black Girl Freedom Week. Take good care, everyone.